And we welcome you into the Spotlight presented by Alathus Life. Thanks so much for carving out a little bit of time on your afternoon to join us here. If you're in the market for buying or selling your home, give us a call, 479-968-5668. Or you can cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com, and we will be happy to assist you in any way that we can. Our guest today has a sphere of influence that goes across the country. He is a coaching legend in this area, and I promise you, if you talk about him, there's somebody that has a great Pete Kelly story. Pete Kelly joins us here on the Spotlight. Coach, how are you?
Man, I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here with you today. I don't know if I'm a legend, but I guess I'm working on that status. So thank you for that.
The people that I know who say they're not legends are more often than not the most legendary. That's
Okay.
that's why I call myself a legend all the time.
Gotcha.
I know
Gotcha.
who I am, and I know that that's not it. So, Pete, you and I go back a little way.
We do. We do.
You are a Yale County native, deep Yale County
Yeah.
native. But I think the people that know you right now, they know your influence at Arkansas Tech. Let's take them back a little bit.
Sure.
You're an Ola Mustang.
Sure. I'm a proud Ola Mustang. I do have a small connection being a Dardanelle Sand Lizard as well. I started school there as a kindergartner and went to 6th grade in Dardanelle, then soon moved to Ola, and was actually just a couple years behind your mother.
Mm-hmm.
She and I went to school together there as Ola Mustang. Graduated in the fall of, in the May of 1988, and in the fall of '88, I joined Arkansas Tech's campus. And so, very proud of my Yale County connection, Yale County connections with the two schools. Could be more proud to be a Mustang and be a somewhat a transplanted sand lizard as well, because my wife and kids go to school there now, and love the area. Love the area.
Dardanelle, Yale County in general is a fascinating place because as rural as it is, and as much of a stigma I think it sometimes gets, there's a lot of talent that came out of that area.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You look back on the people there that made the influence in helping other people, and the talent that was generated. Unbelievable. Just so many kids have gone on and done good things, from becoming doctors and lawyers and school teachers. Small town America at its very best.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to 1988.
Okay.
You walk onto Arkansas Tech's campus, and I don't think you've left yet, have you?
No. From that standpoint, I consider myself to be very blessed and lucky. Obviously, getting started was a little bit of a struggle. I was telling you a little earlier that, with my high school year, senior year ending, we lost our home, and by definition, we were homeless. And my mother still wanted me to go to school, and so we found a way, but the way was a struggle because it economically didn't have all the things in order, and it made things a little bit more complicated. And for the first 2 years of being on the Tech campus, I hitchhiked and walked back and forth from Ola to Russellville. My grades reflected that, and my mother finally discovered the grades being low, and she said, fix it. So we fixed it, and obviously onward and upward from that point on. I had some other family members help me later on, and again, from that point of help and being assisted by them, onward and upward, and my career got started shortly thereafter, and here we are today.
Let's talk about that struggle and where
Sure.
you ended up, because as you're walking and you're hitchhiking, you still have an idea of what you want, right?
Yeah, I carry in my wallet a little strip of paper that I wrote on, gosh, however many years ago, I don't know. But I knew I was going to be on the college campus when I wrote that down. I want to say it was around age 8, 9, or 10. I wrote that on that piece of paper, and I knew I was going to be on the college campus. Thought I was really going to be a basketball coach initially because of the influence I had of some really great coaches. One being Kenny McCoy there at Ola, others being from the Dardanelle area, Coach Rankin being one. My goodness.
I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Great stories with him and his teaching. But I knew I was going to be a basketball coach, or thought I was going to be a basketball coach. And as fate would have it, some things would intervene. I still get to work with athletics on a rather large scale at times at Tech, but I got myself in a connection of being academics with the health and PE department, and then that worked into a student service work, and that lasted for about almost 14, 15, short of 15 years. And then academics came back and said, hey, we'd love for you to be full-time faculty back in health and fit PE, and it's been a great fit. And I couldn't be happier with that connection with academics and helping students succeed. Seeing them come in as a somewhat shy and unsure freshman, and then seeing them leave as a polished young professional stepping soon into their career of teaching and coaching has been really, really the most rewarding aspect of my work.
And I will add in a personal side of that, because as a freshman at Arkansas Tech, you're my Bridge to Excellence mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I remember walking into your office and I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I was a Dardanelle graduate. Even Arkansas Tech seemed like large and scary to me, and I just remember thinking, okay, if I am going to make anything of myself, it's going to be because Pete Kelly showed me how. Do you get a lot of that?
I do, because I have students come back and tell me, Coach Kelly, because you did this or you did that. I do that because somebody did it for me, and it's really a paying it forward, if you will. So yeah, I intentionally make sure that when I have visitors coming from Yale County, coming from other parts of our state, I intentionally make sure that they get my attention, and we talk about their need, whether they're scared or unsure, just navigating this thing called college, because it's such a pivotal point in their lives. Of if they get this thing right, it changes the generations for that young man, that young lady. It changes the generations from the standpoint of their children when they have children and their grandchildren. It's huge. And I can say personally, I can see now where it's affected my two girls being college educated and how they're navigating college now and doing so well. And it's the real McCoy when you can sit down and show the longevity and the concern for somebody.
When you're working with these students, especially coming from these rural areas, they typically are not, they're not coming from affluent families most of the time.
No.
How are you able to talk to a student and say, hey, this is what this has been, but this is what it can be?
Well, I just try to be real with them, because it's ironic you asked that question today, because I'm working with a group of students this morning on that very thing. A lot of those same students that are in that class are coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds. Maybe their moms and dads have never been to college. They're a first-generation student, and they need to know that I was that first-generation student. So I can really share with that experience of not knowing and being unsure and understanding their struggles. Some days are going to be a little bit more difficult than others, but just sitting down with them and letting them know that I'm in their corner and being real with them, saying, hey, this is what it means. This is what it's like. And if you don't do that, here's the consequences of that behavior. Not going to class, therefore having low grades, and how that materializes into unsuccessful semester. So just sitting down and talking with them.
We're talking to Pete Kelly. He is over at the Physical Education Department, easy for me to say, at Arkansas Tech University. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, give us a call, 479-968-5668. Cruise on over to RussellvilleLiving.com. Pete, this is what's fascinating to me, is that coming from that background, then you wind up at Arkansas Tech, and you have been there now for 33 years. And just to put that into perspective, I turn 34 next month.
Okay.
As you've walked through this career path, though, I know that you have had students that have stuck out to you, people who have come on who have really gone on to success. I mean, what are some of the success stories?
Well, first of all, I would hate to leave anybody out, because there are many. Oh my goodness, so many students come to mind. Joey Potts, and knowing him and seeing
shout out Joey.
Yeah, seeing the success he's having there at Alma. Obviously, Eli Drinkwith at University of Missouri, and where he was a SGA president for us on our campus back so many years ago, and seeing those leadership qualities that he brought to the table, and now seeing it to a high level at the SEC football. But so many others. Alexis Bullard, who's in Northwest Arkansas. Miss Kaylee Kelly, I think that's, if I'm not mispronouncing her name, but many years ago she was a student of mine. She just got hired yesterday at Danville as a basketball coach. again, there's so many. I can remember that in student services days, kids going on to law school, kids going on and getting medical degrees, and working in various parts of the country and being very successful. My goodness, there's just so many. Um, but I think the greatest joy that I get now that I've got almost 30 plus years under my belt being a student and then a professional at Tech is just seeing those guys and gals come back, and we just spend a few minutes reminiscing
Right.
about those days and just talking and then seeing their successes, and that's really cool. And see their families that they've started, and just seeing that smile on their face that as they came in as a freshman unsure, to see them blossoming into a really solid citizen in a profession that they love, and they're giving back to the next generation. That's pretty cool.
Here's the other side of this. Because you work in athletics, you've seen a lot of changes
I
in
have.
athletics.
Yeah.
Not just at Arkansas Tech, but across the NCAA.
Yeah.
Let's start with Tech
Okay.
first, because in 1988, I believe they were still NAIA. Was that correct?
That's correct.
The women's basketball team was about 4 years away from winning a national championship.
That's correct.
In NAIA.
Mhm.
Then you moved to the Gulf South Conference, and now you're in the Great American Conference, one of the toughest
Mhm.
conferences in football in Division II, but top to bottom, just one of the best conferences in all of D2.
It is, and how we compete day in, day out at various sports, it's amazing. We've got a great group of coaches and support staff helping those coaches, from athletic trainers, sports information guys and gals, all the way through. Just do a phenomenal job. Abby Davis, as interim athletic director, does a phenomenal job stepping in and doing the work that she's done this past year through a very difficult COVID-related year, and we all know those stories. And then to come out and see the success we've had, obviously being highlighted by our men's golf team,
National champions.
winning another national championship. I was talking to the assistant golf coach just the other day, and he shared with me that they were basically hitting into nets in the baseball facility, baseball, softball, indoor facility, hitting nets. Now, again, think about that for a second. We don't have a glamorous course to go play on like many schools in Florida do.
Mm-hmm.
Our guys are basically a bunch of country boys that have done it well, but they're hitting it into a net, and they go and compete, and they really still shine. And so that tells you something about the quality of kids that we have that have that grit, determination not to give up, even though they may have nothing as far as courses to play on like these other teams do across the country. And then for us to go out there and just play and perform. Again, I wasn't there literally, but I watched some of the video, and I couldn't be more pleased with Coach Calcaterra and his staff and what they've done. And again, that's just one example. Look across our sports. My goodness, our football team's going to be just outstanding in the coming fall.
Coach Ships at Tech alumni.
Yeah, absolutely. Another guy that has strong roots going
Mm-hmm.
back home and coming from Morrilton, and he's going to get this thing turned around, and it's going to be fun to watch very, very soon. Obviously, our basketball teams, men and women, obviously Coach Downey with his success being here before, having us at number one. Again, I think it's onward and upward with him and his staff and the kids that he's bringing in. And obviously our women's program is always near the top, if not playing at the national championship game.
Right.
We've done that a few times over the past years. And again, other sports have just continued to grow and be brought to the forefront, and helping these kids have that opportunity for their college education. That's what I love about college sports, is particularly at the Division II level. It's not about going on and becoming a professional athlete. It's about having that opportunity through sport to get that degree.
And it's still interesting too, though. Young lady I went to school with, Eva Cook, track and field all-star at Arkansas Tech, is now going to be competing in Tokyo in the Olympics for the Irish Olympic team.
Absolutely, yeah. She and I are Facebook friends, and I remember her a couple weeks ago winning that competition and now qualifying for the Olympic Games. And couldn't be more proud of her having the connection to Arkansas Tech and being a cross-country athlete and performing at a high level. And again, laying that foundation for our kids to have now that we've got kids that are looking at her and say, hey, I may be able to do that.
You can be an Olympian
you can
coming
be an
from
Olympian
Russellville,
coming from
Arkansas.
Tech. And obviously couldn't be more proud of her, and we'll be watching the day that she's running and supporting her from Russellville, Arkansas, and hoping she wins the gold.
Yeah, that'll be the one time that I'm not rooting for the USA. I
Correct.
will root for
Correct.
I will root for the Irish on that
Correct.
one. The luck of the Irish. We're talking to Coach Pete Kelly. He's over at Arkansas Tech University. A reminder: we've got some great guests coming up later on this week and into next week. Ryan Taylor, hey, he's a buddy of yours, Coach. He's going to be on later on this week. Judge Ben Cross joins us next week as well, as does entrepreneur Emily Young. So very excited about all that. And again, if you miss any of our interviews, you can go back through the Facebook archives. You can check them out. Google Play, Apple iTunes, or Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Coach, I want to go back to something that you were talking about a little bit ago, and you were talking about why you love Division II sports. I think it's one of those things that gets overlooked at times, but as I get more involved in Dardanelle doing their radio broadcast, big shoes to fill there. I've gotten to speak to Will Pruitt a lot more, and just the passion that he exudes for the GAC, the passion that just exists in Division II is amazing, isn't it?
It really is, and it does start at that commissioner level and matriculates down, and obviously to the presidents, and then on to the various campuses, and then the coaches, and then on to the athletes. Because, like I said earlier, very rarely do you have a Division II athlete go on and become a professional and making a living for themselves. It does happen, but it's a rarity. So knowing that, but also knowing that it's there for the student to have that opportunity to compete at a high level and still have the opportunity to go to class and get that extra time to that academic area that they're going after, whether it be medical or educational or business or anything else in between. It really is about that athlete being a student athlete. Now, again, that's not a slam on a Division I athlete or anything below Division II. It just, I've witnessed it from NAI level all the way up to Division II, and I've even spent some time at Division I and understand the level there. But when you're at Division II, those kids have to have a want to, a real grit of getting out there and competing and staying in tune with that competition and competing at that level while doing very well in the classroom. They don't always have the tutors that are at the Division I level. They don't always have the help sessions that are out there at the Division I level. They don't have those academic centers that are for athletes that many Division I schools have for their athletes. Again, that's no slam or no thing on Division II. It's just the makeup of who we are and what we represent, and it really is a passion. And again, like I said earlier, it starts with the commissioners and the various leagues, and then matriculates down to the presidents, and that's where the culture is really cultivated about being a Division II athlete and being successful.
I talked to you a little bit before we started recording about this question. Okay. I told you to think about it because I wanted to ask this. When I talk to guys like Joey Potts and people I went to school with, and then people who graduated after me or before me, there is always a group of guys like me and like Joey and those folks who can come back and say, Coach Kelly had an impact on our lives. Are you aware of your sphere of influence?
And I kind of somewhat tried to answer the question earlier a little bit, so I'll kind of go back to that. Just here recently have I felt that, because I'm getting phone calls from high school athletic directors, high school principals, a little bit more prominently now in the last year or two, possibly 3, where they recognize who I am and they see the name of that potential hire, and because of the connection with me, they'll give me a call. So there's the influence there. But something more than that, I really haven't given it a lot of thought. My wife jokes with me a lot about we can't go anywhere and someone not know you, and you spend time talking with them and kind of catching up. I'm just very blessed that, man, everything I've done, I've been surrounded with great people. And those great people have responded, whether that be a professional who've helped me or a student who I was overseeing and supervising. They've gone on and just done outstanding work. I hope that my influence, if any, was just to show that a small town kid can do it, and how he did it, that he came to work every day, and every day that he came to work, he gave his best effort. And along the way, when he gave the best effort, he did his very best to make sure that that kid recognized that Coach Kelly was in his corner. And I tell this in my class a lot. You're now joining my family, and that means a lot to me. Not just my girls and my wife, but my family. You're now a part of my family. So I do think that resonates with them, because many of these kids are coming from small town communities, not from Russellville.
Sure.
So I think that makes them feel a little bit more connected with me, because I do include them as family. So that's part of that influence, maybe. But again, just going to work every day and letting them know that I'm in their corner, and I'm there to help and assist, but also sometimes scold.
Yeah.
You know, in the most positive way, because sometimes we make silly mistakes,
Right.
and we need to correct those mistakes.
Certainly.
And we learn from that, and that's my influence, good or bad. But again, it's been great. It's been great. Everything I look back now, thinking about that question, it's been about the people I've been around, and so many thanks goes out to those folks for allowing me to have that opportunity to be influential. Dr. Brown, Dr. Earl Doman, Dr. Jack Ham, Dr. Eldon Clary, Dr. Annette Hollyfield, Dr. Pat Gordon, Dr. Keith Wills. Oh my goodness, the names could continue. Dr. John Cadle, Roberta Gifford, Steve Lawrence. Again, the list could go on and on and on. And again, just going to work every day and knowing that they're being supported, I'm in their corner.
Well, we listed some names earlier, and I just want to put this back into perspective. Eli Drinkwith is one guy that you mentioned. He is the head coach of the Missouri Tigers in the SEC East.
That's
it's
correct.
The toughest conference in football, and he says that one of his influences was Pete Kelly. So, I mean, is it humbling at all?
It is, especially at that level, because it's such a national level, and when you talk about football, you've got to talk about SEC football on every breath.
Right.
Because they're always competing for a national championship, and for him to have that connection with me, but that's really cool. But I think for me, more of a factor is not only him, but his brother Jeremy and his sister Buffy, and just his younger sister as well. I mean, all of them were connected to me in some form or fashion, being connected with them either in grad school and then moving on into the profession and student services. It's just really cool, and especially having that, I guess you could call it credibility. Not that I needed it, but having that little extra credibility coming from someone at that national level, it's pretty cool to see and hear. And I'm just honored that he allowed me to come out and visit with him when we had that time to visit back in November of 2019,
right
before he got hired, and really cool.
When you look back at 33 years, I know there's some stories. Are there some stories that you can share that kind of stick out to you, as far as the absurd, the hilarious, just some moments that stick out and say, I'm never going to forget that?
Oh my goodness. There are several.
Any of them that you can tell?
yeah, I think I could tell this one, and it goes back to Joey Potts. And again,
of course it does.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So many good stories with that guy and his little crew of folks that he hung out with, because there was such a spirit of supporting athletics and being a part of the school and being a part of different things. But going back to sport, particularly football, Joey had this unique way to get his attention to be heard. And we were in a pregame, and I forget who it was. We were playing, I want to say West Georgia. We're in the Gulf South Conference, and they're making a trip up here to Russellville, and these are some big old boys. I mean, there's some big boys, and we got a few big guys ourselves, but Joey had done his homework prior to the game, and again, knowing he did his homework in the pregame when they're doing the stretches and getting things ready for the game to get kicked off, he is telling stories and talking to the players and researching the players in such detail that he knows what their majors are. He knows where their hometowns are. In many cases, might even know who their mom and dad are from his research of that player. Hey, 89, your mama's name? X, Y. And just that kind of stuff. What I saw, because I'm hearing it, then I see it. I see the head coach of West Georgia run across the field at Burkle Field, Thone Stadium, and gets up on the railing. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're about to go to blows here. We're about to go to blows. This coach has lost his composure. We're going to have an issue. But as I get closer to the communication, I realize that it's not an altercation at all in the physical. The head coach is applauding and celebrating Joey Potts and the research that he did, and said something to this effect, said something like, son, if I could bottle you up and put you in a jar and take me to every game, take you with it to every game, I would, because you're already getting into my players' heads. Mm-hmm. And that's big. He said, you did the homework. And so he was really celebrating Joey's effort to do that pregame, I guess you could say, tongue-in-cheek dialogue. And I never have forgotten that, because I really expected blows. Instead, it was a celebration right there on the stadium bleachers.
He and I believe the late Michael McSpadden, mm-hmm. and a couple of our other buddies went to an Arkansas Travelers game one time. And we always, when we did this, we intentionally sat out in the berm close to the third baseline so that we were close to the players. Yeah. And the third baseman, I believe it was for the Tulsa Drillers, I truly believed was going to physically harm Joey Potts that night.
Yeah, that's what I thought about the West Georgia coach. I thought there was going to be physical harm, and I was thinking, man, I've got to rescue him. But no, it's not the case at all. That coach was celebrating Joey because he had done his work, and he was getting into his players' heads. So, yeah, Joey just had that way of doing that in basketball games. They're all behind the bleacher, or behind the home visitors' bench, up in the bleachers. He would talk to the coaches and players, and you could see them turn their heads, and you knew, okay, this is an aspect of home court advantage, mm-hmm. very much so, having him in the stands. So that's one memory that I'll never forget. Cody Hill was a part of that too.
Oh yeah,
out of Morrilton. Man, just so many great memories. Another one I'd probably like to bring to your attention is just, so many kids come in from small town Arkansas, and they walk out being the professionals that they are today. That's a memory that I know that's kind of blanketing a whole lot, but seeing that and experiencing that over the 30 plus years, and for me being a part of that too, man, it's just life changing. And you see that change, and the kids growing into young adults and having families. That's really cool. And again, going back to sports, that's been a big part of me here at Tech, and seeing the athletes shine. The number of people when we played the Division II championships a few years ago with Mark Downey was here, and obviously we were upset on our home court and didn't want to lose, but that happens. But see the character of the kids come back from that, it speaks volumes of the kind of kids that we have on our campus.
Pete, there's more to you though than the sports side of you. I think that's what you're most known mm-hmm. for. But you are a dedicated family man. Let's hear about your family.
Oh my gosh! First and foremost, my wife and I met as college students on the Tech campus. She's been the best thing to ever happen to me. I tell that to my students in the class, and so she probably may hear that from them when she bumps into them. But she truly is the best thing that's ever happened to me. We were married on the Tech campus there at the Wesley Foundation way back in 1998. She's been my rock and my support and my comfort, and just everything about family. She is the supporting system in making it work. Obviously, I've got two girls, Shelby and Kylie. Shelby is a sophomore at Arkansas Tech, studying rehab science, going to be a pediatric clinical therapist and working with children. And Kylie is a 11th grader, going to be a junior at Dardanelle. She's looking at having a plan in veterinary medicine, and I hope that she gets there. She's still looking at some things still to maybe explore beyond that, but two really great girls. Both of them are doing very well academically. Shelby just completed her last spring semester with a perfect 4.0. Kylie is in the top 10% of her class of 144 students, and I know that she's going to do great. And the guys, again, with her and Shelby and my wife Tina, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without them. And they deserve all the accolades that the traditional coaches and people say during these kind of things, but I can't say enough things about the girls. We joke a lot because I usually get an eye roll,
Right.
when I say something to them, and that tells me that I'm still being an effective dad.
Exactly.
And so I've got the eye roll, so that means I'm still a part of the equation, and they still listen. And again, very blessed with them. Some of the things that we do as a family, just this past weekend, we got out and did some things up on the mountain. We do a little hiking, and we didn't necessarily hike, though, on Pettigene. We got to see the car show.
Oh, nice.
That's the first time we had done that as a family, and really enjoyed that. Said we're going to go back and do that. We work out together. My wife and youngest daughter work out together when Shelby's at work. So we're doing some cardio or running and lifting some weights and getting some muscular strength and endurance there. So we do that together. Just try to do things as a family unit as much as we possibly can.
What do you think your legacy is?
I have, to be honest with you, I've thought about that because, and I think about that dash. 1970 was the year that I was born. Dash, and obviously we don't know the end date, but I think about that dash, and I just would hope that legacy would be a dash that would reflect my beliefs, my values, my genuine care and respect for people, my love of learning. I would say too that maybe the legacy that I've created and maybe still creating, both in my family and my profession. Ultimately, that I believe in my Heavenly Father, and the dude is in control, and I listen to the dude, and I talk to the dude, and it makes things a little easier.
Okay, the only thing I can think of, though, is that, while I know we're talking about God, you say the dude, and I'm thinking the Big Lebowski. Does God look like the dude from the Big Lebowski? I don't know if that's sacrilegious. I'm just going to move past that.
Sure. But I do think about the dash. Again, there's a lot more to that. And part of that goes back to not knowing who my father was. I've never met the guy. Being almost 52 years old now, I'll be 52 my next birthday. It really has not had a significant bearing on me not knowing who my dad is. But I really want to make sure that my girls knew that I was their daddy. And not from a standpoint of just biological, but man, being there and being a part of their lives as a dad should. And I know many of our kids don't have that opportunity. I mean, I was a part of that, but I didn't want that opportunity for my daughters to happen again. I want to make sure that I'm at their ball games, I'm at their band recitals, I'm at their dance recitals. I'm applauding them when they're celebrating, and I'm applauding them and supporting them in their greatest time. But I'm also being supportive in their lowest time, because it takes a village.
Sure.
And I want to be a part of the village, being their dad.
If you could speak to the kids who are out there right now who are like you, what's the message you're giving them right now?
Don't ever give up. Jim Valvano's video back in the ESPY's the Jimmy V Foundation. I challenge you young folks out there to watch that on YouTube. Just Google that and pull that up. But that slogan that he has for the foundation, don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. That's what I would say. Don't ever give up. Because how close do you know that you're going to be successful if you give up? How close were you? How close were you if you gave up? You never know. And trust me, I've had many, many, many chances to give up. And thank the good Lord, someone, some entity, something happened where it gave me enough energy to go and continue, that I would not give up. And here we are today.
Coach, this has been a treat. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor to have you on here.
My pleasure. When you texted me and asked, I think very highly of you, and getting to know these folks that are taking care of the set, just meeting them. I think highly of them for the work that you do. And I've watched the show several times, and the quality of people that are on the show, it just speaks volumes of our community. We got a
Sure
lot
does.
of positive things happening in Russellville and the surrounding areas of Russellville. That needs to be shared. It needs to be celebrated, and that needs to be applauded. And you're a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of this, and thank you of the viewers out there who are joining us today and every day right here on the Spotlight. That's on Facebook at 3 o'clock. Remember, if you missed any part of this interview or any of the interviews back in the archives, you can check the Facebook archives. You can also go on to Google Play, Spotify, Apple iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, or you can check out our YouTube channel to catch up on all of the greatest spotlights. Remember, Ryan Taylor coming up a little bit later this week, Judge Ben Cross and Emily Young coming up next week. Until next time, my name's Drew Brent. Thanks for joining us here on the Spotlight. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.